and
Okay.
then,
Okay, my last official duty, I'll bring this meeting to order. And before I step away from the chair, I'd like to thank everybody for the last 2 years. We've covered a lot of ground in those 2 years and appreciate the support around the table. I definitely appreciate you supporting me in this role for the past 2 years. Thank you so much.
thanks, Grant. I just wanted to acknowledge Grant and Lori as well for the past 2 years. If you recall, 2 years ago, municipal election, this board had 80% of its members move on or were not elected. And Grant and Lori really stepped up to the plate to come and take us through those transitional years. And the staff certainly appreciate the support that you provided us over those last 2 years. And you've always been just a phone call away, and not only supportive of staff, but of the authority in the community as well. And I truly appreciate that leadership. With that, I'd like to announce that the chair and vice chair positions are now vacant. I do have a recommendation from the membership that Dan Dale be appointed as interim chair for the purposes of conducting the elections, and would look for a motion in that regard. Lori?
I'll second it.
And seconded by Jim. As all members are present today around the table, except for Frank Bears, who sends his regrets. With the will of the membership, can we do a show of hands rather than a roll call? Okay, all those in favor? And that motion is carried. So I'll now invite Dan Dale to the table to conduct the elections.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to join you this morning and to carry out the elections for your chair and vice chair. The election for chair and vice chair for the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority for 2025 will be conducted in accordance with the Conservation Authorities Act and the Conservation Authority Administrative Regulations as follows. Scrutineers. The appointment of one or more scrutineer is required for the purpose of counting ballots should an election be required. All ballots shall be destroyed by the scrutineer afterwards. And I have a recommendation in front of me that Kevin Jackson act as scrutineer and that the ballots be destroyed after the election. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that motion, please? You want to record these for me?
Sure. I see Todd Noble, mover, and Sharon as seconder.
All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you. So in terms of the election procedures and what we will follow for today, the election will be conducted in the following order. The election of the chair, who shall be a member of the authority, followed by the election of a vice chair, who shall be a member of the authority. I will ask for nominations to each position. Only current members of the authority who are present may vote. A chair and vice chair can hold office for one term and shall serve no more than 2 terms in accordance with Section 17 of the Conservation Authority Act. Grant Jones, chair, and Lori Baldwin Sands, vice chair, have each served 2 terms in their respective positions and therefore are not eligible to serve for an additional term in those positions unless application is made to the minister for the exception. And that's under the new legislation, and then ultimately then that puts the authority and the responsibility in the ministry's hand to decide what's happening here as opposed to yourselves. So further, in accordance with Section 17, a member of the municipality of St. Thomas cannot be appointed to succeed the outgoing vice chair unless application is made to the minister for that exception. Nominations shall be called 3 times and will only require a mover. The closing of nominations shall require both a mover and a seconder. Each member nominated shall be asked to accept the nomination, and the member must be present to accept it unless the member has advised the secretary treasurer in writing or by email in advance of the meeting and the election, or their willingness to accept their willingness to accept the nomination. If there is only one nominee, the individual shall be declared into that position by acclamation. If there is more than one nominee, an election will occur. Each nominee shall be permitted not more than 3 minutes to speak for the office in the order that they appear alphabetically. Upon the acceptance of nominees to stand for election to the position of office, ballots will be presented to the members by the scrutineer for the purpose of the election. The scrutineer will collect the ballots and advise the acting chair who was elected with more than 50% of the vote. A majority vote shall be required for election. If there are more than 2 nominees and upon the first vote, no nominee receives the majority required for election, the name of the person with the least number of votes shall be removed from further consideration for the office, and new ballots will be distributed. In the case of a vote where no nominee receives the majority required for election, and where 2 or more nominees are tied with the least number of votes, a special vote shall be taken to decide which of such tied nominees shall be dropped from the list of names to be voted on in the next vote. Should there be a tie vote between 2 remaining candidates, a new ballot shall be distributed and a second vote held. Should there still be a tie after the second ballot, a third vote shall be held. And should there be a tie after the third vote, the election of the office shall be decided by a lot drawn by the acting chair. If the members understand the proceedings, we will begin the election of the chair. Any questions? Seeing none then, I would now call for nominations for the position of chair for the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority for 2025. Jim?
I nominate Todd Noble, chair.
Todd Noble. I'll call it a second time for nomination for the position of chair.
I would nominate Sharon McMillan.
And I would call for a third and final time for nominations for the position of chair. Okay. I will ask the candidates if they're willing to allow their names to stand.
At this time, no.
Okay, thank you. I will then request a nomination or a motion rather to close nominations for the position of chair. Moved by Lori, seconded by, I'm sorry,
Sharon.
I can't see the card yet. Sharon, okay. All those in favor? Nominations are closed, and Todd, it would appear by acclamation, you are now the chair of the Conservation Authority for 2025.
Okay.
All right, now let's begin the process, and we will call for nominations for the position of vice chair for the Conservation Authority for 2025. Let's open up.
I nominate Sharon.
Sharon. Call for nomination the second time for vice chair. And for a third and final time. Seeing no other nominations. Sharon, you'll accept that position?
I will.
Thank you. It would appear by acclamation, you are now the vice chair of the Conservation Authority for 2025. I guess at this point, we have our new chair and vice chair. I will if you would like to say something to the board, either of the candidates, that'll be
Few
fine.
words usually, so, well, thank you for putting the trust in me. We'll do our best as we go forward, and I thank Grant and Lori for their exemplary work from the past. Yeah, that's about like that.
Sure.
I just thank the board for their support. It's a great organization, and looking forward to the next year.
Very good. Well, that will conclude the elections. Thank you very
Yes.
much, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Dan, for coming in.
Oh,
Congratulations to both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Grant. Take care.
All right.
Oh, no.
That was
See on the 30th.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, but if you want to take it, aspects.
trying to get, I was fighting with passwords trying to. Yeah, I ended up changing my password.
I spent in the county fixing problems.
What's the library board?
Yeah.
The payroll was all messed up. They locked me out. Couldn't get my receipts for my account. And
They're always. Jerry's got it very good.
quite well yesterday. Everybody was locked up.
Good.
Somebody pushed the wrong button.
Y'all are busy.
Thanks, Dan.
Very good, thank you.
So. On?
You're on.
Okay, so elections are done, introductions and declarations of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we'll continue on. Nothing on the hearing board,
No, no hearing.
so year 2025 administrative approvals, committee appointments, that's all done, right?
Actually, no. So there's some decisions, if I may, Mr. Chair, that the board does need to do today. The committee appointments that we do at the first meeting include the executive committee. The executive committee consists of 5 positions. Some are by virtue of position, so the chair and vice chair, so it'll be Todd and Sharon will be members of that executive committee. And the past chair, so Grant by position is on that committee. And then we need to elect to sit on that committee with those 3 members. If you can just go to the next slide. So in 2024, that executive committee consisted of Grant, Lori, Frank, Todd, and John Wilson. So this year it will be Todd, Sharon, Grant, and then 2 to be appointed or elected. So it's the will of the members or the current membership. I will note that Frank did send me and Grant a note saying that he would let his name stand to sit on the executive committee again this year. And if members are in agreement with that, then we would be just looking to then another position. If John was still willing to let his name stand, then that executive committee could stand as such. If that's the will of the members, then we would just look for a motion to that effect, which I think is on the next slide.
Moved by Lori. Seconded by Grant.
So moved by Lori, seconded by Grant. Yeah, call the vote then.
Call the vote. Passes unanimously.
So then the rest of the committee appointments, then the Conservation Ontario is typically the chair, the GM, and 1 alternative. In the past, it's been vice chair. The Conservation Ontario meets about quarterly, so it's not an onerous commitment. The majority of those meetings are now done electronically, with 1 or 2 being held in Toronto. So I don't know, Sharon, if you're willing to let your name stand as the alternate.
I can do that.
Vice chair. So that would be the Conservation Ontario Committee. The Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee, that's usually held by the chair and the general manager. Todd, it's not a big commitment, so I'm hoping that you can sit on that as well. And then the only other outstanding one would be the Western Fair Association. Lori, you sat on that last year. I'm wondering if you're still willing to.
Sure, I'll continue. That is the will of the board.
So if that's the will of members, then if we can toggle forward, I think there's a motion to that effect. So that the chair be appointed as the voting delegate to Conservation Ontario, the general manager be appointed the alternate voting delegate, and that Sharon McMillan be appointed as the second alternate. The chair and general manager be KCCA's representatives on Lake Erie Source Protection Committee. And finally, that Lori Baldwin Sands be named as KCCA's representative on Western Fair Association.
Need a mover?
Please.
Mover and a seconder, John Wilson and JJ. All in favor?
Oh, it's easier. We gotta get printed.
Yeah, it might be a jump between glasses and no glasses.
So we're at signing officer.
Okay, signing officers, we need a mover and a seconder.
Yeah, so the motion, Mr. Chair, is that the signing officers for KCCA for 2025 be one of the chair, vice chair, and one of the general manager, secretary, treasurer, or manager of communications, stewardship, and outreach.
Moved by Jim. Seconded by JJ.
Okay.
All in favor? Motion carries. And borrowing maximum. Recommendation that the borrowing maximum for Kettle Creek Conservation Authority for all expenditures in 2025 be a maximum of $200,000. And further, that signing officers be authorized to execute the necessary documents in this regard. Moved by Sharon. Seconded by Grant. All in favor? Motion carries. And appointment of the auditor. Recommendation that the firm of Graham Scott Enns be appointed auditor for the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority for 2025. Moved by JJ, seconded by Gary, sorry.
Questions?
What's that?
Questions, we can.
Sure.
This is something we, if you look at this, is it yearly we appoint them? So we wanted to change them next year, as we do it. It's not like it's a 3-year term. You don't have to vote on it every year. We do.
We vote on it every year. It's not like a term appointment. Yeah.
Great company. I just wondered how the process was. Thank you.
All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, administrative bylaws.
Actually,
Bylaw
sorry, I think
amendment?
it's double
Oh.
pages, double sided.
You're shortening me.
Yeah, shorten it by at least 1 page.
Finally, Chair.
Finally.
And the appointment of the solicitor, recommendation that Grant Engels be appointed solicitor for the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority for 2025. Moved by Sam. Seconded by Frank. Or Jerry, sorry.
The other Frank.
That's my middle name.
And all in favor? That carries. Nobody had any questions about that?
I would have my hand up.
That's his other.
Meeting minutes.
Those were previously approved, Mr. Chair, so I just always put them in the first package of the year, just to remind members of those dates.
And then matters arising. Oh, sorry, Lori.
The October 28th is with AMO again. We moved it last year to the Thursday.
Yeah, we usually only require an August meeting if required, so we can set a time. Probably in June if I think that we need that, but we'll be conscious of that at that time. That's okay.
And matters arising, media report. Is that our next?
Actually, minutes.
Oh, minutes? Okay.
Mhm.
Recommendation that minutes from December 18th, full authority meeting be approved.
As minutes.
Mr. Chair, I would note that I did forward it out to the members, a slight change to the minutes that I would like recognized. There was an error on the on-board system for the December meeting, which erroneously displayed the meeting starting at 11, which resulted in JJ Strybosh attending at 11. The error is regretted and staff are taking steps to make sure that it doesn't happen in the future. But we would like that reflected in the minutes, and that change was sent out to the board members yesterday and is on the screen. And I will make those changes to the draft minutes so that they're reflected in the final. So the motion, I believe, should be approved as amended.
Okay. Lori and Grant? All in favor? Now matters arising?
Yes.
Okay, matters arising, January media report.
Let Betsy handle that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one major item on the media report that was in your advance package was we did do the official announcement of the Lyle donation. And we had a really good pickup by the media. There was an article in the Free Press, the Elmer Express, on My FM, and lots of traction online. I think the post was shared and seen over 40,000 times, and just some of the comments were included in your package, and you can just see the support from the community was really fantastic for that donation.
Awesome. Lori?
I spent several times going around and seeing how those recent donations are actually connected and what an advantage it's going to be for conservation throughout the entire area. I thought that should be noted in minutes as well, and also how many trees that we are suggesting to plant in the new. If we can talk a little bit about that, if I can find out from staff what the hope is on the tree planting on the new acquisition.
Through the chair to Lori. So it's going to be phased over the next 2 springs, the planting on site. So the entirety of the agricultural land on that property will be restored. We already created a wetland on site this fall. And so all the remaining agricultural land will be planted into trees, and one small portion in tall grass prairie as well. So perhaps we could bring back, you'll see in the spring, the first phase will occur. So maybe we can bring an update then, just so you can see the species planted, some pictures of the planting and that sort of thing. So we can bring that back to the board.
Have there been any, if I could, Mr. Chair, have there been any partnerships or any things that we have been created because of this new acquisition?
I think the partnerships will be revealed as part of that upcoming report to the board.
Thank you.
But definitely new partnerships and old partnerships have resulted in this acquisition and will result in the stewardship of the property as well.
We need
So sorry, the second report on the watershed conditions, Jen Dow is not able to attend today. But the water courses are fluctuating with rain events. Lower temperatures have increased ice cover along the Great Lakes, although I would say, as noted in her report, the majority of the lakes are still ice-free, which is unfortunately becoming much more regular in our winters. Staff are completing snow surveys and ice monitoring for January 2nd and January 15th, and will continue throughout the winter months. Pretty typical. But yeah, it is incredible to look at the Great Lakes and just see how much is ice-free at this time of year.
any questions on that? Okay. Mover and seconder to accept or receive the report, John, JJ? All in favor? Carried. Correspondence?
So Mr. Chair, there was one piece of correspondence that I would just like to highlight and give a little bit more background information on. This was an email from Jennifer Keys advising of a new regulation regarding the minister's permit and review powers under the Sea Act, specifically section 28. So if we can just go to the next slide, this is very high level. The CAs haven't been given an opportunity or just haven't had the opportunity yet to kind of sit down and talk about this new regulation or really get feedback from Conservation Ontario as well. But I thought I'd brief you on it. So with the CA Act changes, there's sections in there that included powers for the minister to issue a permit. Gave the changes to the CA Act gave the minister the ability to issue an order to direct a CA to issue a permit for an activity that would typically be prohibited under Section 28. And they can do that under their own discretionary powers. The order would be provided to the affected CA and posted on the ERO within 30 days. If an order is made, the minister can issue a permit, but is required to basically look at the same legislation and regulation requirements as the CA would. But a minister may also refuse a permit or issue a permit with conditions. So it does give the minister quite a bit of power to step in for any CA and issue those permits. That authority existed in the Conservation Authorities Act. But this new regulation sets out some additional requirements on how that would be carried out. So the additional requirements that have now been enforced and did come into effect on January 1st is that the minister may prevent or take over the permitting process only if the activity pertains to a matter of provincial interest. And they outlined very high level those areas of provincial interest. So there are things like housing, community service, infrastructure, employment opportunities, and the minister always can use his own opinion as to whether those matters are of provincial interest. So you can see how housing and maybe employment opportunities could have a very wide definition of why the minister would step in and take over the permitting process for a CA. It does further outline what an individual would need to submit to the minister to ask them to step in and issue a permit. These include the name and contact information, a summary of the proposed activities, steps that have already been taken with the CA, or how far in the permitting process the individual or entity is in the permitting process with the CA. But I'd just like to highlight, it also asks that individual submit local endorsement, and it describes that as a form of a municipal resolution. So I am happy to see that included in there, so that at least like the local planning authorities or local municipalities where this would be affected have an opportunity to say whether or not they support going forward. The other thing it touches on is the minister's review possibilities. So if you remember when we went through the CA Act changes, now an individual can advocate that their permit be reviewed by the minister. And this typically would arise after the CA issues a permit with conditions. So if we chose to issue a permit with a condition, the individual can request a minister review, and the minister needs to do a decision within 15 days of getting, or they can ask our minister review within 15 days of getting a permit with conditions from the CA. The minister must reply to that request within 30 days, and the minister can confirm or vary the CA's decisions, make any decision they consider appropriate. But again, they must base it on the same legislation and requirements that we would. This new regulation sets out some additional requirements. They're quite similar to issuing a permit. The minister may conduct a review of a CA permit only if it pertains to those provincial matters of interest. And again, it also outlines what an individual must submit to the minister to initiate that review. And again, I'm just highlighting that it also includes a confirmation of local endorsement, if any. So there's another opportunity where the municipalities can voice their opinion. So overall, there was, according to the ERO posting and decision, there was about 80 responses and over 3,900 letters that the minister received on this draft regulation. A lot of the concerns raised were relative to the politicization of the permitting process when the minister can step in, the possibilities that decisions might not be consistent with local planning authorities matters, and a lack of local watershed technical expertise. So it's still not clear as to how much the minister is kind of going to look to the CA to provide. We're allowed to submit to them kind of our theory and our rationale. But there's not a lot of clear guidance on what experts the minister is going to be relying on in terms of making their decision. So there's still a lot of unknown that I think needs to be worked out. The province basically did mention in their decision that they really added that confirmation of local endorsement, such as a letter from an affected municipality or a municipal decision, as a solution or as an answer to some of these concerns that were raised, which I think is a good addition. But there's still a lot of questions, and I think this be interesting to see which cases will come up first, and to see an actual case move through this minister review, or just how many will be enacted over the province in the next couple of months. So still a lot for staff to learn and take in and talk with colleagues and with Conservation Ontario how all this might play out. But I just wanted you to be aware that the decision was made and that the regulation is effective as of January 1st.
Grant?
Thanks, Chair. So matters of interest for the province, that's pretty much everything. It's a pretty broad brushstroke.
Yeah.
So minister comes in, goes against what the authority has approved or not approved. And something's built on the floodplain, for instance, things go wrong. And who is liable? Is it the minister because he overrode the authority? Is it the authority because they're forced to? Is it the building inspector that issued the permit because he had to? Just wondering who's liable at that point.
Mr. Chair, unfortunately, I don't have, to Grant, I don't have an answer to that. I think that that's a question that was raised by CAAs back when we were reviewing the regulation. There's that. I think there's still the question of who monitors after the permit is issued, that any conditions on the permit would be enacted appropriately. Does that fall back to the CA? Who's paying for that as well? The liability, I think, is a big concern, and is one of the questions that I think we'll be looking at Conservation Ontario to advocate for and try to find out from the province.
That was one of my questions too, that you asked, Grant. I don't, that may Laurie go ahead. Is Laurie?
Okay,
So I would add municipalities to that list of potential party defendants if they consent to a change.
Thank you. And my question is, how does it not necessarily affect us, but it does affect people in the room? The ability of some municipal mayors to flex their strong mayor powers? Does anybody have any ideas, or is that going to be a question that will be answered by Conservation Ontario?
I can, Mr. Chair, to Laurie, one of the reasons why I elected to provide you a little bit more information today is to solicit some questions that I can post in future discussions. So I will add that to the list for sure.
Thank you.
Karen, did you have a question?
No.
So to the chair, I guess my question would be the time frame involved. By the time someone puts a complaint into the minister, it could be 6, 7 months before they even get involved. I don't think they're gonna pick up the phone and talk to you right away. There's gotta be a time frame involved for this to take place for someone with a permit problem. For the minister to get involved.
I think, Mr. Chair, and it does, the new regulation does outline some of those timelines, so the minister does have to respond, I think, within 15 days of getting some of these
That's it.
requests. And then there's other requirements that it be posted to the ERO for 30 days as well. So there is some timelines around that would help.
You'd like to think there would be.
Yeah, I mean, there's timelines that we have to certainly follow, so I think they're trying to at least outline that for the minister as well.
Thank you.
Jerry, sorry, Sharon.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the staff. Elizabeth, for section 28, when it comes to the new development, is there a timeline for the CAs that they have to respond or deal with the issue? Because this is dealing only when there's a refusal. But how about if the CAs are we have, as a municipality, we have everything in order, or the developer, but then we are waiting for the CAs. Is there a deadline for CAs to respond?
Yeah, there's,
Section 28?
Mr. Chair, to Jerry, there is, those timelines are outlined in the regulation. So for instance, an applicant comes in, if they submit an application to us, we have 21 days to determine if that application is complete. Once it's termed complete, then based on the caliber of the application, so whether it's a major application or a minor application, then we have, I think it's 90 days for a major application. We have to determine if we're issuing a permit or not. And 30 days for a minor application, we have to make a decision on that permit. So there's definitely timelines that we have to stick to.
Okay, and the other follow-up is, as your CA is going through as well, is the mapping that has been done and required by the province to do. We do have issues in certain areas of London around Thames River because the mapping now, the erosion line and flood line is totally different than it used to be. So there are people right now that their line moved actually to the middle of their house or their entire house. And I was wondering if the same issue, if it's a similar issue here or if there's not an issue. But they're upset now because both kind of value of the property, but the second is to potentially build on the secondary units that we offer. Is it something that we are going through here as well, or this is not an issue?
Mr. Chair, to Jerry, so our mapping does have to update because of the regulation change. So that is something that we're going to be undertaking this year to take a look at those regulation lines. If we do floodplain mapping, if you can recall, last year we did the Dot Creek floodplain mapping. In that case, the mapping increased. We in some very minor occasions, but we had direct communications with those landowners. Were advised of that. No landowners got back with any significant concerns. So as we update floodplain mapping, we go through those public consultations. The regulation layer is definitely going to change over the next year, but I would say in our situation, it would be mostly around the wetlands because of the buffer around wetlands has reduced in those cases. That we'll be taking a look at that and going through that process.
Thank you. No more questions.
Yeah, through the chair, somewhat along the lines of an OLT, is there a cost to all of this as well?
For the minister's review?
Yeah. Do we have to expend anything?
No, we wouldn't have to expend anything for the minister's review, but I'm assuming that there is a cost for the applicant to launch it, but I'm not, I can't say 100% sure. But there would be no cost for us to necessarily for the minister's review, other than extra staff time to have those communications with the minister.
That's fine.
Sam? There's a bigger cost here than staff time or application fees, and that's the potential chilling effect that this entire I'm trying to pick the right word. This entire legislative change puts on conservation authorities who are not supposed to be subject to the political process, who are supposed to be basing their evidence on science. I'm very worried that there's a chilling effect here. And my question is, are there efforts being undertaken by Conservation Ontario, the overall provincial group, or AMO, to try to politely request the province rescind this and not get involved in second guessing our expert authority?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if it's advocacy that's directly, but I know that Conservation Ontario, probably through those channels, have certainly expressed concerns, like the liability concerns, the politicization. Those were all included in our comments. Conservation Ontario's comments back to the province. I'm just not sure what the next step is, and I can certainly bring that back to the board.
Yeah, I'm not going to the chair, I'm not going to make the suggestion that this agency engage in advocacy work, because I think it would be much better if it was done collectively, but I would like to know about that, and I think maybe at the next meeting, I would ask, would it be appropriate for us not to directly engage in lobbying with the minister, but to suggest that either or both AMO or Conservation Ontario engage with this question, because I'm very troubled by the fact that this is in the law now. And if I may, at some point, the chair will just say, Sam, that's enough from you, and just stop. But I think it's ironic for a government that talks about eliminating red tape to just put this additional level of red tape in there, but that might just be me.
Thank you, Chair. Red tape just gets moved from one spot to another. So, but this battle has been going on for quite a few years. I know when the Ford government came in 2 terms ago, there's a major showdown. They're trying to eliminate the conservation authorities. They got enough pushback that they backed off on it, but you're seeing a death by 1,000 blows right now. That's what's happening.
So, just to put out there to the chair and to the board, the question, like, what can we do? We don't want to, like, personally, this authority engage with the government, but, you know, is there anything we can do to encourage or help, you know, resist these 1,000 blows, if you will? Yeah.
The point that I have is we do have a pretty good relationship with our local provincial politicians, so I think that's one of the things that we can support the conservation is through that relationship. But I'll pass that on to Elizabeth if she has to.
No, certainly. I think usually in terms of advocacy at the provincial level, we look to Conservation Ontario and feed into that, as Sam and other members have said. I'm just unsure of what the next step is from Conservation Ontario. Again, this notice came out just, I think, before Christmas type of thing, and again, effective January 1st. So there just hasn't been that level of discussion yet to say what the next steps are, but.
Okay.
I know quite a few have spoken to our reps for AMO and Roma. They are aware of it, but where it is on the priority list, I'm not sure. There's a lot of things on the priority list, infrastructure being the biggest one. Angela, our CEO of Conservation Ontario, is a lawyer. She's very capable at lobbying. I think we look to her to lead that.
I have a question, Elizabeth. What's the likelihood that we will have something like that happen at KCCA? Like, Like, I know we worry about these things, but are we worried about something that we see something in the future coming up that will affect our conservation authority or?
Mr. Chair, I can't predict. What I would say, and it pertains to our, a report that's later in the agenda, is our authority has always had a very robust, pre-consultation, advocacy, with applicants. And a good working relationship with all our member municipalities so that the municipalities are circulating to our RCA minor variances, you know, all those types of planning acts so that we are involved with those discussions right from the get-go and able to identify CA concerns, flooding, what have you, early in the process so that hopefully those applicants are aware of those issues early enough that they can address them. And I think that type of atmosphere locally will hopefully contain some of these issues that might get pushed up to the minister's level. My only concern is when you have pressures like housing, those types of things, it really depends on the developer or the applicant as to how much they want to push this or how much they want to take advantage of this. I will say, though, they really would have to show the minister, I think, in my opinion, when I read the regulation, that the applicant has tried or has moved through the CA process before they take it up to the minister level. So I don't think the minister is going to be too keen to take on or over the permitting process from the CAs, but I think wanted to show that there's another avenue there if there's roadblocks being put up or perceived roadblocks being put up locally. But I do think there is a little bit of a balance there, trying to say that as much as possible, they need to move through the local process before they take it to that ministerial level. But we'll have to wait to see.
Okay. Do we need a mover next second?
Just to accept the correspondence, please.
Mover and seconder to accept the correspondence? Sam, Sharon? All in favor? Okay. Business,
Yes.
municipal appointments,
Municipal apportionment.
apportionment, sorry. Need without my glasses, my glasses. Yeah.
So the municipal apportionment, you might have recalled it or used to be called the levy. It's really the funds that we look from our member municipalities to carry out the business of the authority. The municipal apportionment was included in the budget packages that went out November 21st, and member municipalities were asked to provide any feedback on that. I'm just going to read a preamble to the apportionment vote. You can see on the screen the apportionment weighting, the total apportionment that's being assessed to your member municipality, and then the weighted vote that each member holds in terms of passing this apportionment. So to provide conformity with legislation and regulations governing approval of Conservation Authority levies, the proposed year 2025 municipal apportionment was circulated to member municipalities and posted to KCCA's website on November 21st, 2024, in order to provide a minimum 30-day notice to apportionment approval on January 15th, 2025. There is a 7.5% average levy increase over 2024 levels, or an overall increase of $88,005. A recorded vote will be taken, with each member responding either for or against the motion. The motion carries or is lost according to the total weighted votes assigned to each board member. This weighted vote is based upon the modified current value assessment apportioned to that portion of each municipality within the jurisdiction of the Kettle Creek watershed. The 2025 municipal apportionment approved by the board will be circulated to participating municipalities on January 16th, 2025. Who have not satisfied may appeal to the Ontario Lands Tribunal within 30 days of receiving the notice. Thereafter, no appeals are allowed, and the year 2025 apportionment will be final. So with that said, if we can move to the next slide, the motion that I'm asking for a mover and seconder on this afternoon and a recorded vote is that the 2025 municipal apportionment be approved and that the participating municipalities be assessed for payment of $1,269,194, which is comprised of category 1 operating expenses of $1,046,318.37, category 3 operating expenses of $149,998.50, and a special levy of $72,877 and 0.13 cents. And that each participating municipality share of the 2025 total municipal apportionment be circulated using modified current value assessment.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it fair to presume that you have not received any objections from any of the municipalities?
Mr. Chair, I have not received any objections from the member municipalities.
Okay, and in that case, I'd like to move the recommendation.
Second?
No, I have a question as well. So the chair, the weighted percentage, has it changed or is it just still the same weighted percentage compared to last year?
No, the weighted percentage usually changes on a yearly basis based on that current value assessment that we receive from the province. I will say that Southwold had a substantial increase this year. They went from about 4% to 6%, which does mean that there was almost $30,000 of the levy moved over to Southwold, and we had some early consultation with the CAO from Southwold just to prepare them for that change because it was significant this year for Southwold.
What was London last year?
We can go back to the back.
What's 50? It's 50 right now.
It's 54. You came down a little bit, which evens out by Southwold getting more. So I think you're around 56 last year, I want to say, and yeah, so that was redistributed.
We better approve it quickly.
Okay,
Okay.
no more questions. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Oh. All in favor?
Actually, it's a recorded vote,
Yeah.
sorry. So on the motion, Sam Trousseau,
Yes.
Jerry Pribble,
Yes.
JJ Strybosh,
Yes.
Lori Baldwin Sands,
Yes.
Jim Herbert,
Yes.
Grant Jones,
Yes.
Sharon McMillan,
Yes.
Middlesex Center is absent, John Wilson,
Yes.
and Todd Noble.
Yes.
And that motion passes with 100% of the weighted vote present, and there is currently 98.16% of the weighted vote present, with Frank Burrs being absent. Thank you.
To administrative bylaws?
Yes. So Mr. Chair, there was just a couple of, in reviewing the bylaw this year, there was just a couple of housekeeping changes that I wanted to attend to at this meeting. One of them was to update the manager of communication, stewardship and outreach listed as a signing authority. And then again, I just noticed a couple of minor changes again with the new regulation 402/2022 with the budget there, changing that wording from the old levy to apportionment. So that was changed throughout the document. And then Conservation Ontario in their most recent review had recommended some slight clarifications in terms of the role of the agricultural representative. We don't have an agricultural representative that has been named to this authority, but there are some in other authorities. So there's some recommendations just to make that role a little bit clearer in the administrative regulation. So all those very minor housekeeping changes, and they were highlighted in red in the advanced package. So I'm simply asking that those amendments be approved this morning.
Laura?
Someone?
Sorry, who was seconder?
JJ.
JJ, thanks.
All in favor? That motion's carried. And Health and Safety Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an annual report, just updating members on all the work that the Joint Health and Safety Committee has been doing over the past year. We do meet quarterly. All the minutes of those meetings are included in the package, and you'll note, I think it refers to the safety inspections and the hazard inspections that we conduct throughout the year. We did also elect our insurer, Marsh, offered to come out to some of the CAs and do a risk assessment. We volunteered for them to come out and do that, and they attended a sampling of our sites in May of 2024. Overall, they were pleased. There was no major issues identified. They did make 2 recommendations. However, one of them pertained to our playgrounds. So we have playgrounds in both of the campgrounds and one down at Dan Patterson. They did recommend having those inspected by an outside certified inspector on an annual basis. Staff are recommending to do it biannually just for cost, and the staff follow the inspection form that an outside inspector would do on a, I think, monthly basis and then an annual basis as well. But we did think that doing the expense of having that third party come in on a biannual basis was a good idea. So we are taking steps to implement that. And then the second recommendation from Marsh was very minor, but on our trailhead signs. So we have trailhead signs, and the trail is marked out. We have the 911 number on there, and what is acceptable uses of the property. They just recommended that on the trail there would be like a red dot or something to say you are here on the trail where the sign is. So again, pretty minor, and we'll take that into advice as we replace signs or bring new signs in. So all in all, a fairly good year. We'll initiate those recommendations as stated in the advanced report. And I'm just simply asking that you receive that Health and Safety Committee report for this year, for this past year.
Okay, any questions, Lori?
So moved.
So moved. Jim?
I have a question after it's moved.
Okay.
I'll move it, then I can ask.
Okay, seconded by Jim.
Through the chair, is the assumption the first inspection would happen before the playground's open? It doesn't open up for 2 weeks and then someone does an inspection?
No, we can make that. We'll do the certified inspection before they open.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Much of a cost to that, Elizabeth?
I think it's about $1,000.
I'm guessing all the municipalities have that as well, but that's not an in-house maybe inspection that they do. It's Grant?
We do have staff go through the playgrounds on occasion just to make sure everything's okay, but yeah, we do have to have the inspection as well.
All in favor? Motion carries. And permit timelines for compliance annual report.
So again, just another slight change with the new CA Act. This authority has always, as a best management practice, reported on our yearly stats for the permits, the number of permits issued and whether or not we met timelines. It's now a requirement under the Conservation Authorities Act to issue an annual report on the authority's timelines and compliance. So going back to Jerry's earlier question, this meeting in terms of do we have timelines where we have to issue permits? We do, and we're now being asked to report on them. So we have 21 days after receiving an application to deem whether it's complete or not. After application is deemed complete, we have 90 days to issue the permit if it's a major permit and 30 days if it's a minor permit. The requirement now is to issue an annual report that is publicly available and speaks to our review of our mapping, whether any mapping was updated or whether mapping review has been conducted in that year, whether we complied with the complete application notifications, timelines, and whether we conducted any administrative reviews. So I'm pleased to report that last year we issued 48 permits. 28 minor and 20 major. 100% of the major permits were issued within that 90-day legislative timeline. Best management practices from Conservation Ontario is to try to improve on that legislative timeline. 95% of ours were actually issued within 30 days of complete application. 100% of the minor permits were issued within 30 days, which is the legislative timeline, and 82% were issued within 14 days, which is the best management practice that Conservation Ontario is suggesting that we strive for. So on average, our permits are issued within 10 days of receipt of a complete application, which I think is a pretty stellar record, and again speaks to the level of pre-consultation that the staff does with applicants and together with our member municipalities, so that once we get an application, we can be pretty confident that it's meeting all of our requirements, and we're just dotting our I's and crossing our T's at that point. So a good year and looking forward to trying to sustain that level of service moving forward. So the motion is that the 2024 Section 28 permit timelines and compliance annual report be received.
That's amazing. Yeah, what's some of the challenges in that you've over exceeded that?
Well, and really it's kudos that he's moved on, but Joe Gordon certainly excelled at trying to get those permits out of the door and was exceptional at pre-consultation. So
Mover and seconder to receive it?
No, I'm just gonna have a comment. So I'm glad that, I'm disappointed Joe left us here, but I'm glad he said upper times because those are certainly numbers. And I hope he's gonna introduce some proactive initiatives at upper times as well, so we move forward faster and come close to these numbers. Kudos to the entire team.
Mover and seconder for Sharon?
Second.
Jim? All in favor? Anybody else want to say anything or? No? All in favor? Motion carries. And mover and seconder to go into close. Sharon? Jim?
Sure.